they've had characters. You also have to remember that the Dodgers played in the media capital of the world. I mean, when the Dodgers went on the road trip, sometimes, 14 writers covering the ball club. So it meant that if they did anything at all, it would be blown out of proportion.
Frenchie Bourdigray comes to mind on the stories, which I heard later, but Bourdigray was rounding third and coming home, and he was out by about 15 feet, and he came in standing up. And Casey Stengel said, "Why the hell didn't you slide?" And Bourdigray said, "I was going to, Case, but I was afraid I'd crush my cigars." $50, 50 Depression dollars.
Casey thought I was big French. He had a center fielder by the name of Frenchie Bourdigray, one of the real characters of baseball. A guy that wouldn't shave his mustache, and that caused a problem along the way. But they had me rooming with Frenchie, both big French. I think Casey felt maybe I could settle him down, I won't comment further on that particular one, but on one occasion, the Dodgers had been losing. Casey jumps out of the dugout. Frenchie Bourdigray was playing catch where he shouldn't have been playing, right in front of the dugout, hit Casey right on top of the head, knocked him cold. And Casey was out and wasn't there for the game. And it broke the losing streak. The next day, believe it or not, Bourdigray really asked Casey. He said, "Casey, that worked yesterday. Should we try it again?"
One year, the manager of the Giants, a man named Bill Terry, the last National Leaguer to hit 400, said, "Is Brooklyn still in the league?" And of course, they were in a pennant race, and the Dodgers knocked them out of the pennant race, which was, really strange.
You come to Florida every winter, don't you?
I've been coming down here for about 10 years.
What do you do?
Well, I come down here to work, mostly.
What do you mean, work?
Well, I've been coming down here about 10 years.
Okay.
And what I do, I consider as work. That is, I go out, I play 18 holes of golf, and I'll take a boat, and I'll go out on the river fishing. Then I'll go get my dogs, and I'll take those out bird hunting. Now, that's what I consider work. Well, that's kind of a theory. During the summer, I'll go out and pitch a ball game, maybe lose 10 or 15 pounds. When it's over, paper come out and say, "Well, Vance is playing ball." Well, if that's play, I consider this work.
Here's a picture we had of Casey at one of our old-timers games in Dodger Stadium over here in L.A.
Casey, I'm real proud that the Dodgers have had this opportunity to salute you. And certainly you have come up with a few names and numbers on that uniform of yours.
Yes, sir. I tell you,
you played, managed, or coached for all of those clubs.
Well, that's terrific. I want to tell you, Red, I tried to read them down there, and my memory's getting a little short, and I can't remember how many times I was fired. That's how many places I was fired from.
Remember the time you fired yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. That's right. That's a new one. They didn't know that. I was at Worcester in the Eastern League, and at the end of the year, I went to manage another ball club, and Judge Landis said, "Why, you are thrown out of baseball." The owner says, "Why? Why?" And I said, "Why, I resigned." And he says, "Who resigned?" I said, "I signed. Show me the discharge slip." He went and got the discharge slip, and I signed it. I was Charles D. Stengel, president, Charles D. Stengel, player. So I released player Charles D. Stengel. And therefore, Landis says, "Well, let's see some of the contracts." He showed me 3 of the contracts, and after he saw the 3 contracts, he says, "Your name's down there, you must be president." So I was a free agent.
Casey did a rather famous trick. He caught a sparrow with his hat out in left field. I think, I forget who he was playing for at the time. And he put this hat on, put the sparrow on, knowing that when he would go to the plate, he'd see the umpire, and he'd bow to the umpire and tip his hat, and out would come this bird. But people always used to think he had a few bats in his belfry anyway. But so we decided on this for this old-timers game. But who's going to see a sparrow with a crowd of 55,000 people? Nobody's going to just see that sparrow come out of there. So we decided to put a pigeon in his hat. And there was one dilemma that how are we going to get this pigeon to stay still? And Jim Brewer, the late Jim Brewer, took the pigeon and he rocked it to sleep. There's a way of doing it. You just put the pigeon's head under a wing and give it a rocking job like this, and it'll go to sleep. And we put the pigeon in Casey's hat, and just before he went up, but the pigeon was enjoying a real slumber because he wouldn't get off his. Casey tipped his hat, but the pigeon stayed on his head. They finally had to brush the darn thing off in order to get it going. And strangely enough, when we played the regular ball game that day after the old timers game, the pigeon came back looking for Casey.